From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show. Oh yeah, here we are rocking it for another great edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. My name is Matt West, here to talk to you about cars. I am, as they say, the host of this show, and this show is all about cars. I have a fantastic show lined up for you today. As usual, lots of good stuff to talk about, but before I get into any of that, I need to mention some really cool news, which is that I have secured a fantastic guest for next week's show. I am really, really excited to announce that on the show next week will be Alistair Moffat. And if his name sounds familiar, that's because he is a 13-time Guinness World Record holder for all sorts of feats of precision driving. If you have been thumbing through the pages of Guinness World Records, you will have seen him. If you have seen his viral videos of crazy stunt driving, then you also know him as well, and I'm proud to announce that he will be joining me live on the show next week, so I'm really, really excited. You definitely got to tune in next week for that. Now, for this week's show, I do have some fun things in the works. We're going to be talking about Toyota Camrys. Yes, that's cool. Say there's a good reason this is cool, trust me. And also going to be talking about the Biden presidential administration. We're not going to get political, but we're going to talk about their decision to allow E15 fuel during the summer months in an effort to curb fuel costs. I'm going to talk about what exactly is E15 and also why this really won't do anything. It might help with supply, but it's definitely not helping with price. And you might be saying, well, wait, if there's more supply, that has to help with price, right? Well, there's a reason why in this specific instance it does not do that. Also, going to be talking about some other fun things. I got a lot of stuff in the works, and of course, we're gonna mention some amazing things that I saw on Bring a Trailer. So we're gonna go through all of that. But first, ladies, gentlemen, A90 Supras. Okay, I want to talk about Elon Musk, and we're not going to talk about him in the capacity of having anything to do with Tesla, but a little bit about his offer to buy Twitter. And trust me, I'm going to connect this to cars, okay? This will ultimately boil down to cars because, you know, this is a car show. This is a car show. But Elon Musk, as you may have heard, if you did not, he has offered to buy Twitter after buying a 9% stake in the company. He is now leveraging that and now offering to buy the whole company for $43 billion. That is that's a Dr. Evil type of billion. You know, you put your finger up to your mouth, $1 billion. So that's a lot of cash. And but, you know, my thoughts, obviously, as a car enthusiast, aren't what sort of companies could I buy for $43 billion that would make me money and would be smart business decisions. No. Us car people, we don't think that way. And neither does James Gilboy from The Drive. I got to give him a hat tip for doing all the legwork and researching this. But the question is not what companies could you buy for that money? The question then becomes, how many Toyota Camrys could you buy for $43 billion? This is the sort of highbrow knowledge you come to this show for, by the way. So, and the short answer is many. You could buy a lot of them. In fact, you could buy every single one of them in existence. And James on The Drive goes into some great detail, how he did some math and figured out, firstly, you got to figure out how many Camrys there are in the world, because the Camry has been made since 1982, which, by the way, it is the 40th anniversary of the Camry. And so Camrys, they've been around for a while, but a recent assumption is about 5% of the cars made before the model year 2000 remain. And of all the Camrys made up until that point, there's currently a running total of 10.2 million Camrys in the world. So you have to, in order to pull this math off, you have to do some assumptions because the numbers just don't exist. But if you assume about 5% of those cars have survived since 1982 up to 2000, that's about 150,000 cars. I think 5% is not a generous enough assumption because, I mean, come on, these are Camrys we're talking about. They run forever. There are Camrys that will literally outlive the sun. Just throwing that out there. The sun will go critical, it will explode, and there will be Camrys floating around in space still. But if we assume that, so that's 150,000 cars before that. Now, after that, there are about 7.2 million Camrys total that have been made since 2000. And again, another somewhat generous assumption that 65% of those, you take 65% of that, it's about 4.6 million. And then you combine that with the previous 150,000 or whatever, you get about, rough math here, about 4.8 million cars. So if you have 4.8 million cars, then you have to come up with an average price for all of those cars. And if you imagine the average price from a new Camry being in the $20,000 range, base, to some of the old Camrys, especially ones in a little rougher condition, selling for only a few $100s if they're really crusty, but still running. The criteria is that they all have to still exist. They can't be crushed pieces of steel for this to apply to it. But you say an average of about $9,000, $8,900, $9,000 a car. And if you were to spend $43 billion and you offered $8,900 for each of the cars, you could, in fact, buy every single road-going Camry in existence and have some money to spare. You'd be spending about $42 billion. So you would have $42 billion and some change. So you'd have a little bit of money left over to buy maybe, buy a few Corollas to go with all of your Camrys. So yeah, there you go. Could Elon Musk buy every Camry in the world? Yes, he could. And would he do that? He wouldn't. I mean, I would. I would do that. Now, obviously, too, I mean, what would that do to the car market? The car market's already screwed up, but if you had a billionaire come around and say, I am going to acquire every single Camry in existence, what do you think that would do to the cost of the Camrys? I have a feeling that would start extending the cost of each one beyond the $8,900 average. So what can I say? The things I would do with all the money versus the things Elon Musk would do with the money. Obviously, he's buying Twitter. I like the idea with the Camrys. And again, hat tip to James Gilboy from The Drive for actually pulling all this math off. So, yeah. Where would you even put all the Camrys? I don't know. But the fact is, you would have enough money to have a different Camry for every single day of your life, and you would definitely die. You would die off of old age before you even had a chance to drive probably, the rest of them, a good chunk of them, a very sizable chunk of them. So, yeah, there you go. You know what? You can go to other places to get sophisticated technical knowledge, and you come to this podcast for this sort of stuff. So, I think that's really cool. That's a fun thing to open up on here, and I don't know. I'm a fan of this. I think this is what we should start doing. Screw Twitter. Twitter's there's nothing of value on there that is of value to cars, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, there's car people on there, but I'm just saying, Camrys, Twitter, what would you do? Yeah, here we go. You know what I'll do is I'll put a poll up on the Facebook page. You can let me know what you would do with the money. Go to facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. Now, I do want to get into some really interesting things regarding fuel and what the current presidential administration is doing about it. And also some really exciting news about the Toyota Supra. Oh yeah, Toyota is finally listening to its customers. This is really cool. You got to stick around for that right after this break.
At the Speed Council, getting things done fast is our priority. We do everything fast, from driving, working, sleeping, and eating.
Someone help, he's choking!
This is Tim.
Hello.
And by the time this ad is over, he'll have bicycled across the earth 69 times. Nice. Even if our name sounds unfamiliar, you know our work. F1? Pfft, child's play. The world's first supersonic jet? Yep, that was us. Apollo 11? Also us. The fastest animal in the sea? Hell, we even wrote the Wikipedia article. Fast. And we're so dedicated to speed that we've genetically engineered the world's first hyperspeed speed machine. With this scientific breakthrough, you can download your favorite automotive podcast a whole day early. How's that for fast? Patreon.com/Throttle Warrior. Donate now. Download the show early and receive special perks. This message approved by the Speed Council and the Church of Fast Things.
Oh yeah, that is an Acura NSX. Car sounds, of course, courtesy of friend of the show, Josh Maldonado. Josh, I want to thank you for sending that in. By the way, Josh said when he sent that in that NSX is from a shop that he works at where they specialize in NSXs, and that is the 19th NSX that they have worked on in this past year, which is very, very cool. And of course, I love the NSX. I mean, the NSX is, to me, I don't know if I could say I'm a diehard Honda fan because I only own one Honda, and my three other Toyotas would probably beg to differ. But that said, I do like the S2000. That's the Honda I have. And which recently I fixed the clutch finally. I know everyone was telling me, "Oh, you suck at doing this. You're just procrastinating." I know doing the clutch on that S2K was a pain. It sucked. It's a lot easier taking a transmission out on like literally anything else. But anyway, that said, the NSX again, such a cool car. I mean, you've got a V6. It's mid-engine. It's VTEC. It has, it's rear-wheel drive. It's got pop-up headlights, at least on the earlier ones, the NA ones. Like, very, very cool. And, of course, manual transmission, mid-engine, pop-up headlights, rear-wheel drive, VTEC. Oh, my God. That is a recipe for perfection. And it's a Honda. It's reliable, too. You could daily drive the darn thing. So, very cool. Again, Josh, thank you for sending that in. I really enjoy hearing that stuff, and I'll have to plan a trip up to your tuning shop that you work at sometime. He's by the way, Josh said he's in Massachusetts, so I'm going to have to plan a trip up there. I'm going to have to do it. It's going to have to happen. So, anyway, if you'd like to send your car sounds into the show, you can, of course, do that. You can post them on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. You can also email them to me if email is more your speed. That's cool. Matt@throttlewarrior.com. Love to hear those car sounds. And, of course, by sending those into the show, you then are also entered for a chance to win the Automotive ADHD keychain and a $25 gift certificate to your favorite art store. Lots of good stuff there. And of course, those keychains as well are made possible by all of the folks on the Patreon, as well as a whole bunch of other really good things in the works. So if you haven't checked that out, check out the Patreon as well. Now, what I want to talk about is fuel. Oh man, I've had a couple of great episodes about fuels and things. Last week I talked about e-fuels, sort of a futuristic approach to things to keep internal combustion alive, and it's very much real, and it's very much a thing that exists. I would encourage you to check that out. But also ethanol. Oh yeah, I've talked about ethanol in great detail on this show before. E85, what exactly is it? Why is it cool? Why did I convert my 40-year-old Toyota to run ethanol? Well, aside from the fact that I can, also because it's very cool. Now, what's interesting is the Biden administration, the presidential administration, has recently announced, and I'm going to keep most of my, internal politics, my personal politics out of this, but the administration announced that they would be allowing the sale of E15 fuels through the summer months. And I am of the opinion that this will have no substantial difference in the terms of fuel costs, but it might help with fuel availability at the very least. And we're going to get into that. But first, just a quick refresher on ethanol-based fuels. So obviously you have E85, very popular in the auto enthusiast scene. Obviously, E85 has a higher octane rating. It's closer to about 100 octane. It's better for performance applications. You could almost call it race gas for the street. Now, the 85 comes from 85% ethanol, 15% gasoline. That's how you get E85. Now, the biggest drawback to ethanol is the energy density is lower, meaning you have to burn more of it to go the same distance as you do with gasoline. Now, From a car enthusiast perspective, it makes a lot of sense because it's higher octane, because it tends to be cheaper, you can get away with running more aggressive timing and other, higher compression, more timing, different things like that. So you can do that. And from an enthusiast perspective, it makes sense even if you're getting a reduction in miles per gallon because it has less energy density. Now, in my AE86 running ethanol, it's a non-stock engine. It's a 4AGE 20 valve ITBs. It's not stock, so I don't expect it to get good gas mileage. It's not made for gas mileage. It's made for screaming around at like 9,000 RPM and ITB noises. And it was made also to be cheap. So that said, before I switched to ethanol, I was getting like 26, 27 miles to the gallon on the highway. If I was romping around the racetrack or doing an autocross, I was getting like 5 miles to the gallon. I mean, come on. When you're driving in a performance context, no one gives a crap about fuel economy. Maybe unless you're doing an endurance race, like 24 hours of Le Mans or something, and you need to stop less for fuel. But I don't know. The fact is, when you're racing, you can't expect to get good fuel economy. But when I switched to the ethanol, I'm getting like 19, maybe 20 miles to the gallon, depending on how I'm driving. And that's not scientific at all. That's just me calculating off of my odometer whenever I fill up. And obviously my driving style might be different if I'm cruising to Denver or if I'm romping around on a good, back road. So don't take that as a scientific example of the difference between, regular and ethanol. But the fact is I get less. So when we're putting E15 fuel into our cars, so E15, much like E85 is 85% ethanol, 15% gasoline. E15 is basically the inverse of that. It's 15% ethanol, 85% gasoline. And the idea being that E15 can run in most modern cars, if not honestly all of them. And I guarantee if you're in the United States, you've probably run E15 and not even noticed. So that's one benefit. Now, it tends to get used as the ethanol tends to be put in there as a economical way to boost octane. You can also learn all about octane rating on another episode of this show I did, breaking down what exactly is octane. And that's a great episode. Scroll down in your podcast feed. You will find that. Now, will the E15 cause a reduction in fuel costs? Well, technically, yes, it will, because the ethanol is cheaper than the gasoline. I filled up with E85 recently. It's been hovering here in Colorado between $2.65 and $2.80 a gallon, depending on the day, which is really good. Now, normally, when regular gasoline is cheaper and premium is cheaper, it ends up being a little more expensive, honestly, to run the ethanol because you're burning more of it than it is to just run premium. But now that premium, at least here in Colorado, I've seen it touching $5 a gallon at some places. And heaven forbid if you live in California and you're paying $18 a gallon or something absurd, I don't know, like $7 maybe. The ethanol being at like sub $3 a gallon is actually cheaper. Even if you're burning more of it, that doesn't matter. It's still cheaper. So, but that's not necessarily the case with the E15. Sure, you've got, and I should mention firstly that most gas stations that you go to, you will notice a disclaimer at the gas pump that says gasoline. I almost said gasohol. That's the thing they used to call it, by the way. Like back in the 80s and 90s, they called it gasohol. But no. Gasoline may contain up to 10% ethanol. And so gasoline already, in a lot of cases, is E10, if you want to use the same nomenclature. And going to E15, that's only a 5% increase in ethanol content, so a 5% reduction in gasoline and gasoline and oil use. So it's not that substantial. And now it might reduce the price at the pump. The price at the sign at the gas station might go down 10 cents, 10, 15 cents a gallon. And people say, oh, look, it's cheaper. Well, the problem is you have the same issue with the E15 as you do with the E85, which is energy density. The ethanol in that fuel is not as energy dense as the gasoline. So you are going to get a slight reduction. That's E15 versus E85. You're going to get a slight reduction with the E15 in fuel economy. It won't be drastically noticeable like it is with E85, but you're going to get a reduction in economy. You're going to be, you basically what I'm getting at is you can't look at your fuel cost as the price per gallon on the sign in front of the gas station. You have to look at your fuel cost, price per distance traveled, especially when you start playing with ethanol and all sorts of things. When you're talking about that energy density, it makes much more sense to say it costs me $25 to travel this distance instead of saying it's, $2.70 a gallon. That tells me nothing about the actual distance you could travel with said fuel. And so the E15 will be less fuel efficient subtly, probably not a big deal. And the fact is, by allowing the sale of this year round, and normally it's only sold in the winter again, sort of as a, octane booster. And the administration has currently had a ban on selling it in the summer for air quality concerns, allegedly, even though the ethanol burns cleaner than the gasoline. So I don't know why that matters, but whatever, it does. So basically, we're switching to E15 for a couple of months out of the year. It's only 5% more ethanol than gasoline. So it's a marginal amount for a couple more months out of the year than it normally is used anyway. It's not going to make much of a difference, is what I'm getting at. I mean, you're not going to be putting a big dent on the actual cost to the driver, to the driver's bank account. You're not going to be making that much of a difference, even though the cost at the pump will appear to be cheaper. The cost to travel a certain distance either will stay about the same or go up, if anything. And so where I do see a benefit from this is in terms of the fuel supply. So we make the ethanol and we produce that domestically. That is made here in the United States. It's made from corn. Now, you can actually make ethanol from all sorts of things like soy and potatoes. It's just we have chosen to use it for corn, and there's this whole life cycle of, ethanol producing carbon dioxide. When it's burned, that goes into the atmosphere, and then the corn, being a plant, uses carbon dioxide as part of its life cycle. So it sucks in that carbon dioxide and then grows, and then we harvest that, make more fuel, and it's a whole happy cycle. Recent studies have also said that maybe isn't as efficient as we think it is, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but the fact is that the ethanol, it's not going to be a huge difference. We'll have more ethanol in the fuel by 5%. So we're reducing our fuel usage, or rather, I should say our gasoline usage by 5%. 5% out of hundreds of millions of barrels of fuel. That is a substantial amount. I'm not going to get around that. So if anything, I see the benefit here as just purely helping out the supply chain, using fuel that we already produce domestically and using that as a means of relieving some of the demand on the current gasoline supply. And as a result, that might cause prices to go down a little teeny bit more because, supply and demand, well, we're pulling some of the demand off of that supply chain with more ethanol. So yeah, that might work. It's not going to be major though. That's what I'm getting at, is it's not going to be major. And you know what we ought to do? Here is the gearhead in me says, why don't we convert everything to run E85? Now, the only concern you have with E85 is older vehicles whose fuel lines are, not made of a rubber that can support ethanol. Ethanol tends to be it's kind of rude to certain types of rubbers and plastics, so especially on older cars. And I will say, even with the E15, if you have a old classic car on all old classic fuel lines, and I'm talking like pre-80s. Everything had the 80s on, there was already E10, so a lot of the fuel system components have been designed for a small amount of ethanol at least. If you've got a really classic car, I would avoid putting the E85, I would avoid putting the E15 in it too, just purely out of the sake of not wanting to destroy your stuff. Then again, it'll probably be fine unless you let it sit around too long, but I don't know. I digress. What we got to do, we have to just do everything on E85. It smells good. Come on. If you've been around a car burning E85, come on, doesn't it smell delicious? I don't know. Either that or we should just, I've said it before on this show, let's all just start distilling ethanol at home. And then the ATF will knock on our doors and be like, hey, why are you making all this moonshine? Oh, no, it's not moonshine. I'm burning it in my car. So anyway, hey, I got more stuff to talk about, like really questionable bring a trailer auction listings. There's some good ones here. I'm going to run through those. And of course, more of your car sounds coming up right after this break.
Did you know there's a rare but serious condition affecting 1 out of every million? Most are born with it, and despite decades of research, doctors struggle to find a cure. The truth is, thousands of people simply don't know what cars are. For those affected, things are grim, but recent developments show promising success. New clinical trials using breakthrough audio technology have shown a 69% improvement in patients with the most severe symptoms. Treatments vary, but one day we may see a cure. More information is available at throttlewarrior.com.
Yeah, that is Eric's 2004 Honda Accord with a 6-speed manual. Yeah, not too often you find manual transmissions in those. By the way, if you have car sounds, you want to share them, I will play them on this show and have you entered for a chance to win the Automotive ADHD keychain. It says you have somewhat questionable taste in podcasts and, of course, a gift certificate to your favorite parts store. Now, before I talk about some interesting and perhaps too expensive things that were spotted on Bring a Trailer, I do have one really significant piece of news, and I am excited to announce the fact that the Toyota Supra, the A90, the 5th generation Supra, is officially gonna have a manual transmission. Yes, us crusaders for the manual have officially won. Yeah, we beat them. We coaxed Toyota into putting a manual transmission in it finally. So a few days ago, and I posted this on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page, Toyota posted a very not cryptic, a very blunt post on their Twitter page. Just, a picture of 3 pedals. And a picture, the pedal box, right? 3 pedals. Okay. It's like, all right, cool. And then it just says #Supra. That's all the confirmation we need. Yeah. Look, when the Toyota Supra came out, I wrote a article that on the now defunct Drive Tribe that had probably, I think about 60,000 reads. It was probably the coolest thing I ever put to writing, which is, I don't know, that's probably not saying much, but I did talk about how when that car came out, how everyone was wrong and hating it, and that I really actually like it. I was playing devil's advocate a bit, but the only thing I could slam the car for was not being a BMW, not being a rebadged, up-badged, or you could maybe say down-badged. Is it technically down-badging? I don't know. A rebadged BMW, okay? Yeah, and the only thing I could say against it was that it did not have a manual transmission. What sort of purpose-built sports car doesn't have a manual? Now, I get, Mercedes, for example, with, big grand touring cars, big fast sedans. They're not really light sports cars. You're not really throwing them around a racetrack or anything. Sure, you can, and sure, people do, but that's not a sports car. It's a, big grand touring car. But the Supra, the Mark V Supra is more of a sports car than the Mark IV Supra is. The Mark IV Supra falls into that grand touring category, and I have fairly good experience driving one. A friend of mine has one, and I've driven it. It's right-hand drive. I've driven it plenty of times. It's a fun car, but by no means is it a simple, it's a simple, nimble, tiny sports car. It's fun, it's fast, but, it's the old one. The Mark IV still has a manual. It's a very cool car, but the fact is the new one, the Mark V, has a shorter wheelbase than even my S2000, and the S2000 is known for its short wheelbase, and that plays into its really playful handling. That's one thing. Now, the Supra has an even shorter wheelbase than that. Not much shorter. I mean, they're almost identical. I believe the Supra's wheelbase is only a couple of centimeters, if that, shorter. But having said that, the Mark V is absolutely a sports car. And how you could have a sports car without a manual transmission? That's like when I gripe about electric cars being used as sports cars. That's the issue. You lose that engagement. Who cares if the automatic is faster? We don't buy sports cars to go fast. Well, that's not true. Yeah, we do. Yeah, who am I kidding? We totally do. But we're not chasing lap times so hard that we're chasing the 100th of a second, like in racing. In F1 now, obviously they're using, double clutches and all sorts of stuff because that's just, faster. DSG gearboxes, even in different parts of competition and things like that, that's just faster. If your goal is winning races, that's just faster. But you know what? The manual transmission is the fun way to do it. And Toyota, are they the ultimate car company? Because look, what other car company is owned by a car guy, Akio Toyoda, the CEO? He's part of the original Toyota lineage. He is a car guy. I've mentioned him before. He races on the weekends. He goes undercover on the Toyota race team. I mean, the dude loves driving. Okay, so we got that. We've got a great CEO. Business decisions be damned. Who cares? No, we've got a great CEO who makes sports cars, and that's what we want. And then Toyota listens to their customers. Back when a few months back, when they decided to, do the subscription service for the key fobs on their cars, the remote start, and all these things, and there was a huge outcry from the owner base of saying, hey, this is a mechanical feature on the car. Why are we paying a subscription monthly and yearly to use it? You bought the car by having a subscription service to a mechanical feature of the car. We're not talking about having like OnStar or satellite navigation or any of that stuff or internet service in the car. We're talking about a honest-to-God physical feature of the car. Why should you pay a subscription service for that? That means you don't own the car. Well, Toyota heard that backlash. They were going to do it. The suits there, the bean counters, counting the pennies, said that, we're going to do this. We're going to make some more money. And then the backlash from not only the automotive media, but from the owners was substantial, and they backpedaled. They did the right thing. They shouldn't have done it in the first place, but they did the right thing. So again, now Toyota is making, we say we want more enthusiast-driven cars. Well, they just have announced the GR Corolla, a hatchback, a hot hatch that's all-wheel drive, 300 horsepower, turbocharged, is only offered in a manual transmission. Again, Toyota, what this does is it proves that Toyota is listening to its customers. Toyota has also committed to continuing support of the internal combustion engine while its competitors are switching to these plans that, we're going to be EV only by 2030, EV only by 2040, all these, big overarching plans. Toyota says we will continue supporting the enthusiast. We will continue supporting the, combustion-powered car and researching this in order to preserve it in a political climate that is contrary to it. And so again, are they the perfect car company? I'm clearly not biased. I don't look in my driveway. There's not 3 Toyotas there, but regardless, does it count if they run? Because like half of them don't run. I don't know. I don't know if that counts, but they only come on, they're doing really good. I'm not trying to be a Toyota fanboy here. I love the offerings Honda has. I love the new Integra. I love stuff like that. I love American stuff. Dodge with their muscle stuff and their team of muscle and their marketing around their muscle cars has been fantastic. So I'm not just being a total fanatic of Toyota. Well, I am, but I'm not doing that out of just a blind sense of being devoted to them. No, I just like as a company what they're doing. And guess what? When they came out with the Supra and all of the reviewers and journalists got their hands on it, every single one of them said, wow, it's a really well-balanced car. It sounds good. It looks great for a BMW. And it... I'm not going to get into that. And it's a perfect sports car, except for one thing. There's only 2 pedals. There should be 3. And Toyota listened to that. Finally, it took them a couple of years. When the car came out as well, people were scratching their heads and saying, why doesn't this have a manual transmission when the BMW Z4 even offers, which the car is based on, it's heavily based on that BMW. It shares a platform with it. That has a manual. So clearly the parts for the pedal box, the shifter, and all that stuff, all the R&D, all the research has been done. Toyota even said themselves, initially defending their decision to not sell the manual, they announced, we actually developed a manual with the car. We tested it. We have fielded all the developments for it, but we just don't think it's going to sell. And, again, the backlash was stiff. Okay. So, by listening to their customers at the end of the day, from a company perspective, listening to the customers is going to always yield, in my opinion, more profits. Because when you listen to your customer base, not only does that create a sense of loyalty to the company, but that also creates a sense that the customers buying, a sense of them knowing they can buy what they want, not what some manufacturer who thinks they knows best thinks based on statistics and research groups and think tanks and all that stuff, they say, oh, this will probably work the best. And then the consumers say, no, it's ridiculous. Give us what we want. They're going to make more money giving the consumers what they want. I mean, look at all the folks who earnestly, I'm not one of them because I buy cheap crap cars, but all the folks who in true earnesty had cash in hand and were cross-shopping the Toyota Supra with, say the Porsche 911. And that's, Toyota has always been competing with the fast, exotic European stuff, even with the original Supras. The Mark IV Supra, again, its big competitor was, the European stuff. The Japanese were trying to create a sense of, they were trying to create a sense of trust and quality, that is known for those European cars, which it's ironic looking back on it now and thinking of BMWs and Mercedes as being the epitome of, mechanical quality. But having said that, and all the Mercedes fans just tuned out right there. No, but no, they're going to be able to hold their customers and keep them. And people with cash in hand who were cross-shopping those cars were sitting there saying, gosh, I really like the new Supra. I like how it sounds. I like how it looks. The fake vents are maybe a bit much, but I can overlook the fake vents. Oh, but it's only automatic. It's only that. But the Porsche, I could buy the automatic Porsche with the PDK, which would be fun, but I could also still buy the Porsche with a manual transmission, and a Porsche manual transmission at that, which is one of the best in existence. So, and those folks now who maybe bought that Porsche, or we're considering it. Again, we're talking real cash buyers. It's easy for me to comment on this, not being a real cash buyer, because I cannot recall the last time I threw $60,000 down on a car, because I never have. I have continuously bought tons of terrible garbage cars that, in hindsight, fixing said cars, I've probably spent that much money. I probably could have bought one nice car, but instead I have 7 cars that, hey, what can you do? Such is the life. But I think it's a good move for Toyota. Listening to your customers is important. It is critical to being respected by your customers. And Toyota has achieved that perfectly. I cannot wait to see the new Supras out with manual transmissions. And who knows, one of them might fall off of a truck and get dinged up, and then maybe I'll buy it. Maybe I'll buy it if it's broken enough. I'll do it. Probably, likely, again, this will be, there's still rumor of faster Supras being out there or being in the works, I should say. That the version of the Supra we know with the engine that it has, obviously that Toyota shares that platform with BMW, and BMW makes more powerful engines that can exist in that platform. So it's obvious that making a special fast Supra that's even more powerful is probably in the works. It'll probably also have the manual transmission. I'll be a little disappointed if the Supras with the manual transmission are limited to the 4-cylinder models. I will be a little disappointed by that. Now, the 4-cylinder Supras, don't get me wrong, are great because, the way we have been able to achieve power these days with modern turbocharging and tuning, the 4-cylinders are excellent. And in fact, for track cars, I can think of several people who have actually opted for the 4-cylinder Supra versus the 6-cylinder one, which that seems contrary. But the 4-cylinder one weighs less, has a better weight distribution. You have less weight hanging over the front axle, that 4-cylinder keeps it more like a front mid-engine car with that engine tucked behind the strut towers, and really helps with weight balance and handling. And not to mention, the 4-cylinders can be tuned for even more power. You can match the power of the 6-cylinder with the 4-cylinder versions now. We always, in decades past, people have kind of poo-pooed, 4-cylinder cars as being the, lesser option. But when it comes to that now, the 4-cylinder one in the Supra, at the very least, is very good, and people really enjoy them. But if I'm buying a Supra, though, I want the sound, the wail, the noise of a straight 6. I want that. So I really hope that the 4-cylinder version, is not the only one to get the manual transmission. It's possible. It is possible. Maybe the R&D for that manual only happened in the 4-cylinder. and it's not designed for the 6. It's not designed for that torque and that output, and maybe it'd be just too expensive to design one for that. I don't know. I really hope, though, my fingers are crossed, we'll only know, eventually. So I have hopeful thoughts for the manual transmission Supra. Now, one more thing I promised I would get to. I've been browsing around on Bring a Trailer lately, which, if you're like me, a lot of people do this. It is one of the best ways to just waste away time, is browsing through Bring a Trailer, some of the auction listings. And hat tip to Steve Da Silva from Jalopnik. He also thinks the same thing, because he put together a phenomenal list of some of the maybe best, maybe worst sales right currently this week on Bring a Trailer, which, get this, can you imagine? All right, I want you to picture a 1993 Geo Metro convertible. There's not a whole lot of those, except in like bright Barbie pink. Yeah, and then picture how much you think that's worth. Okay, I guarantee you're wrong, because it sold for $11,671. Woo! Yeah. For a Geo Metro, I wouldn't pay $11,000 for it. I might pay $1,100 for it because it's really clean, but Geo Metros, you got to remember, this is the same car that now there's, sub $300 versions of it, of them going around the 24 Hours of Lemons race, not Le Mans, Lemons. There's a whole class of cars for just Geo Metros. So I can't imagine paying $11,000 for one. This one does have a reasonable miles, 36,000. Okay, whatever. But there's some other things. There's other things interesting on here, like, for instance, a 1972 Di Tommaso Pantera, hands down one of the most interesting supercars of the 70s, in my opinion. I think they're cooler than Countach's. I think they're cooler than Ferraris. They look beautiful. Beautiful. I am a big fan of them, except this one's a little crusty. Looks like it has sat underneath a bridge for 30 years, which apparently this one has. They're asking $33,000, or that's what it's sold for. So one other final thing I want to mention that I saw on here was a Ford Bronco Badlands, a 4-door, it's a new one, a 2021, for the mere price of $73,500. You see, the problem with this one is the MSRP is $57,750. So it's $15,000 over sticker, and someone paid that. Okay, so when we're talking car markups, right, and the markups are rampant in this market, for one, the dealers are partially at fault because they are the ones selling things for a substantial markup. But then, aside from the dealers, are the people who buy a lot of these cars. They're pretty well off monetarily. They buy a bunch of them, no intention of driving them, just knowing that they're cool cars, and, I'm going to go flip them on Bring a Trailer for more than MSRP. And then the final person to blame for this whole thing are the knuckleheads paying $15,000 over MSRP. Like, come on. Like, if any one of these people, the dealer, the scalper, or the person misguidedly buying this for $15,000 over sticker, if any one of these people bail out and they don't do it, the equation falls apart. So we just, that's a thing, hey, if you want to talk about grinding gears, this definitely grinds mine. Like, just buy the cars and enjoy it. I don't know. I keep saying one other thing. There's a couple other things. There's a first gen Dodge Ram, so the one from the 90s, I read the wrong number there. Sorry, $76,000. Why? Oh gosh, it's just everything from the 90s is appreciating massively. Nostalgia is a very tough sell. It is a very, very profitable thing, I should say, rather. And a first-gen Ram, I remember, those being just normal work trucks, $76,000. Except the one special thing about this truck is it has. And this is proof that you can never drive this truck ever again. It's not that they cost $76,000 and you're driving a $76,000 2002 Ram. No, it's that it has precisely 69 miles on the odometer. So I think that's why it's $76,000. The bidding probably should have stopped at, $7,000 short of that Just saying. But anyway, and the last thing, I know, I'm just having fun here on the podcast. I get to be a little more long form. I do hope you enjoy me going a little bit longer into stuff. Of course, if you want to hear things a little more condensed and fast-paced, you got to tune into that radio show. But having said that, the last thing, a 1997 Supra Turbo, Mark IV Supra. Oh, yeah, if you want to cosplay as Paul Walker, this is for you. $84,000, which I can't believe I'm about to say this, but that's actually not a terrible deal considering, considering the market on them, because the market on these is well over $100,000. In fact, Haggerty values this at about $90,000 for this car. So it's definitely underpriced according to the market, though I am of the opinion that these cars should be selling from like $20,000 to $30,000 max. Just considering what $100,000 gets you in terms of performance, in terms of luxury, in terms of actual handling and technical specifications nowadays in 2022, like you can buy a better car for $100,000. Like, oh, nothing's better than the Mark IV Supra. Is that a Supra? Yeah, no, it's a Celica. But you can buy a technically better car for $100,000, brand new with a warranty, faster, better looking, better driving, more reliable. But such as classic cars, you don't buy, granted, no one is buying one of these Supras because they know it's the fastest thing. They're not, especially stock, they're not. They are buying it because they want to own a classic car now. It's so weird talking about these cars in terms of classic cars, but this is where we are. I think we should have some way to defund the classic car bubble and drive these cars back down in price and then just drive the crap out of them. Or, I don't know, just do something like that. Get these cars back on the road. That's what I want to see. Maybe I have I share the common opinion with that too, but still, I think that is what it is. Now, anyway, hey, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of the show. I also want to thank the Patreon subscribers who make this show a possibility. And I want to thank the folks who've come over to the podcast from the radio show, getting a little extra content here than you do on the radio show. The radio show's fun too, though. Get to do some extra things there that I also can't do here. So it's kind of it's a win-win. Now, of course, you can subscribe to this fine podcast wherever other decent podcasts, I guess, are downloaded. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to tune in next week. I have the special guest, the honor of having Alistair Moffat on my show, 13-time Guinness World Record holder. He's got current 13 records. Like they're still standing. And he's done some amazing feats of precision driving. I guarantee you've seen videos of his driving. You've perhaps seen him in the Guinness World Record book. And I'm really excited to invite him on the show. You have to tune in next week. It is going to be phenomenal. Now, I want to thank you for listening. And I will see you same time, same place next week when I'm all out of bubble gum. See you then.